everyone. Happy Sunday. I hope you all well. So, we have an exciting teaching for today. It's regarding the tree of life, the Sefirot, the balance of energies within us. And I'm going to link it all in to Kundalini energy and how they relate, how they're similar, and how they're different, these two different models. So we're going to center first, but I wanted to just say a little something. Even though these teachings are coming through now, let's please remember that this is a time for reflection and going deep. The northern hemispheres are in winter, where other than basically California, where it's a little abnormally warm, it's pretty cold. So this is a time to turn inward, to reflect, to do your practices. In a way, these teachings reflect the fruit, the result of our practices. Not just the result, the point of attainment, but also the benefits that we get along the way. I hope they're becoming readily apparent on how the harmonization, rebalancing, clearing, the proper flow of energies lead to a better life, greater happiness, fewer disturbing emotions, greater wisdom, which leads to better decisions, which leads to better futures. Right? We all want to be happy in this life. We all want to have enough. We want love, companionship, friendship. So these basic, more earth-based desires of any, well, I would say any conscious animal, right? Pretty much. Not all of them, but most animals, and definitely those in higher realms of consciousness, probably some of them surpassing our own, wish to have these things, right? And they also lead to religious progress as well. Higher forms of wisdom, compassion, and love, these are all divine attributes. So, by working on healing ourselves, we have benefits that we all wish to have in the material world. By aligning to the divine truths of wisdom that's more purified, is a greater clear seeing that we can bring into our lives, and we find wholeness. The Tree of Life teachings really focus on the spiritual component, which Kundalini teachings also mention as well. I have not as much gone into them, dealing with the third eye, the crown, and above. but I've touched upon them, and I think I went into them to a certain degree. But the tree of life is very, very, very much religious, and they very much complement ourselves. This should encourage us in our practice, not sidetrack from our focus during this time. I had a little concern, and I've been concerned for the last couple of weeks, because last year we were all about the practice, and I felt by me focusing on practice on this Sunday and giving teachings on meditation, alignment, posture, all that good stuff, building one's prayer space. So if you're new, please look at the teachings from last year's Winter Practice Intensive. There's a playlist on YouTube which lists all of them, and go through them, and there'll be great guidance there. And I always try to build, so I can't repeat too much, otherwise we would be sort of always in the same place. But if you're new, don't be discouraged. With time, it'll all come together, and as you have additional time, go back and listen to some teachings at the title and the descriptions that you feel called to, or you feel would be helpful where you are, and listen to them. That's what I did when I built my understanding with my teachers. This teaching should give us encouragement and understanding of the importance of practicing and making good use of the time when it's just too cold to be outside in the cafes, playing tennis, going to the beach, and all the wonderful stuff that we love to do during the summer, and then we hit the fall completely exhausted. So this is a time to really tune inwards. And these are teachings on top of that, which hopefully gives support and understanding the importance of doing the practice. These teachings are intellectual, they're knowledge, they can be a little dense, and they require possibly several times to start getting the details. But intellectual knowledge doesn't get you anywhere. They are a roadmap, understanding if you want to get somewhere, here's how you navigate, here's some freeways you don't want to turn into, this is a wrong direction, or, this is the areas that you're going to see along the road. This is what's happening. This is how it could be a little choppy. And here's how to navigate. Like if I want to go to Nevada right now, and I live in San Francisco, so they're directly west of each other, right? Anybody lives in San Francisco, it's directly west of Nevada. Well, in this time, you have to go over the Sierra Nevada mountains, and there's snow, and it's icy, right? So part of the path for them is to go through that. And once you hit it, you're like, whoa, I'm in the right direction. You'd be a little worried if you went through a desert. You're like, uh-oh, GPS is all wrong. There should be no desert here. So in a way, these teachings show us the path so we know we're in the right direction, and also teaches us what to do when we go through periods of snow, and on the other side of that, the Sierra Nevada mountains, there is a desert. And you realize, well, after that, there's more of a desert. This type of area or space that I need to go through. It's just, I mentioned snow or desert doesn't mean that anywhere aligns with our teachings, but it shows that there's different environments, energetic, spiritual types of thinking, things that come up as we progress in different ways to different people at different times, and certain things might loop back depending on the person. But there's one human body, there's one energetic structure, and we all navigate it slightly differently based on our individual circumstances. But we all have chakras, we all have the lunar and the solar, we all are come from the same place, headed in spiritual directions. But it's the same pathway, different roads, and maybe different destinations. But we're all in the same freeway system. So by understanding what's going on in ourselves, we better are able to navigate our lives. We are given tools, right? One way I've heard it traditionally is normally we're not driving our car, we're in the back seat. The car is driving itself. Well, once I said, I've heard that a few times, and each time I kind of spoke up and I said, I don't think we're in the back seat. We're thinking too highly of ourselves. I really think we are tied up, gagged, and blindfolded, all bound up in the trunk, i.e. completely powerless. And the car is just driving itself, and we're not even in the back seat, much less the passenger seat. We simply don't have the tools on how to drive our car. We're like a sailboat without we're like a car without a steering wheel. We have no knowledge that there's a steering wheel for which we can guide ourselves. We're literally in it for a ride. The propensity of our karma, our karmic winds, how our channels are based on our lives, what our parents did or did not do to us, based on our society, based on that third grade teacher that yelled at us at the wrong moment in our formation and put a certain dent energetically in us, that threw us into a whole different frame of reality. Right? And then we just kind of go along. And sadly, I think that's the majority of human existence. I'm here to give us awareness of our situation. There's no judgment here. Just see it dispassionately, without judgment. This is the situation. It's not good or bad. It just is what it is. And that isness is different from everyone and different depending where you are on the path. But by having these tools and their understanding of what's going on, we now have a steering wheel. We now see the stick shift. We now see the clutch, the brake, and the accelerator. We have an understanding how to drive. We do it wrong, we can crash. We are a little off, we could put, people probably don't know how to do a stick shift, but if the clutch isn't put down right, you could stall your car, or it could shake very violently, which people who learn to drive cars do often, especially on red lights. And, it's a moment, it's a thing, it's an experience, but we are learning. And we grow into very skilled drivers. So these teachings help us understand They are not the spiritual path. Intellectual understanding, looking at the map of how to get from San Francisco to Reno, Nevada. It's on the western border of Nevada. Does not get you to Nevada. Doesn't get you to leave San Francisco. Doesn't even let you leave your house. It may help. Oh, I see this. Oh, this might be a pitfall. Let me make this decision. That's great. That's very helpful. Yeah, I guess I correct myself. That could help. But how do you deal with your propensities that are off, your energies, your thinking, the habits that you can't seem to break? Certain types of relationships that you keep coming back into and they're always the same. You always tend to marry the same kind of man, the same kind of woman, and have the same kind of results. Or just feeling you're in the loop. There was one period in my life before I started learning a whole other system of teachings because I just couldn't go on where I was. And I thought I was on a roller coaster. One day I just literally saw in my third eye, in my mind, I even know what a third eye was back then, in my mind, a roller coaster. And I realized, the first thing, there was no end. So there was no, get off exit. And I saw it was the same roller coaster ride again and again and again. I saw a pattern and I was horrified. How am I here again? What am I doing wrong? Because before it was like, oh, this is happening in my life. But at some point when you see similar rides coming back, you just got to say, well, this is a different situation, different people, different city. How am I here again? And then you turn inwards without judgment and you're just like, you know what? There's something that I have to change in me. And that is a fundamental moment in one's spiritual path when you realize that, in one's life path. And you're just sick of it. You really want something better for yourself. You want relief from your suffering, from your situation that that is no longer satisfactory. You're just no longer willing to deal with it, to put up with it, to assume that's just the way my life is. From a practical, everyday point of view. Spiritually, you may find you're not growing, regardless of your attempts. You feel disconnected from God. You feel disconnected from religion. You're just numb. You don't feel your heart. You feel numb when you walk around. You feel you're not engaging. You're not seeing the green of the trees. You don't laugh in the same way as others. You just feel like, I want this to be better. And then you look at your roller coaster and realize, I need to get off this ride. I need to change the path or the way this roller coaster is. I want it to go through lush forests. I don't want to have screaming events of terror, right? This is achieved through our practice. So please, 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 just because somehow I am guided and the flow of these teachings are coming through now, HP Shalom as the guide, it's the person sharing. I personally, please do the practice. Please do the practice. If it were up to me, I would not give these teachings now. But when they flow through, I give them because they come out really, really well. But they're great, they're intellectual, they're fascinating. I love this stuff, God, I love this stuff. But without practice, so this is winter. Please continue the meditation, your prayer, spending time in front of your altar. Do your pranayamas if you feel called to. Get comfortable, go deeper with them. In a couple weeks, I will give the last instruction for the pranayama. Let me tell you, it's going to take it to the next level. But you're really going to get it and really be ready for it, and there won't be any danger at all if you've worked it. If I teach you how to run as a marathon runner, if I teach you how to run as a marathon runner, and you haven't done your basic jogging, a little faster running, and you're not in shape, it's not going to help you. It could actually hurt you. So you have to build up to it. And this is what I'm hoping you're doing. And if you need guidance, go back to the old teachings. I think this Wednesday around 7 o'clock, we're going to do a prayer practice together, because I want to make sure you guys are continuing. Okay? So enough said about this. I want to get to the teaching. It might be a little long. So I just want this to be clear. Everything I teach is for practical application. If this was just transmission of knowledge, I would not teach. I'm not interested in that. Just wouldn't. Not at all. And it's great that people do, because God knows it helps me and it helps you. But that ain't my calling. My calling is to show things that are practical, that help me, that help us progress along the path. It's the practical application of these teachings that I care about. So take it as guidance, take it as inspiration, take it, wow, I'm on this path. Wow. And walk it so you could experience what I'm sharing in the roundness, and your life just becomes so much greater. Your life becomes this thing of spiritual progress that really makes it truly, truly special. Okay. So we're just going to center briefly. And then I'm going to go into these teachings. I'm so glad I said that, because it just... You can't really get into depth with what I'm hoping everybody's getting into or already in during the summer, because we're outwards looking. There's less time because we're doing trips and everything. So it's a very important time now. Please don't let it slip by. So just take a moment. And on Wednesday, I'll put it up after nightfall in California. I don't know, 5, 6 o'clock, maybe 7. I'll figure out the time. I'll post something on Tuesday or Monday. Close your eyes, center, breathe. Hands together. Connect with God. Say the name if you feel called to. And just connect. I sometimes, different postures of the hands depending how you feel, but sometimes I just put both palms over my face and bow my head and just pray. I find that really connects on a powerful level, and where there's touch and sensation, and there's a lot of energy coming through the hands, especially the right one. If you put it over your face, your energy in your body tends to focus around the head, and that's where the third eye is, and where the crown chakra, and ultimately from the Kundalini teachings I've taught, that's where the energy goes out towards the divinity, God, which is right above, the chakras above the head. It's one of the first chakras above the head. So there's that communion. Remember, it's inside, it's outside. Well, this is one of the ways that you could view it outside. And it is the animation of life energy that goes through our life. So it comes and it goes out and it connects with God, with the truth of the source. And then it comes back in. Not so sure I touched upon that. That's for another time. That's definitely for the spring. So we go up and it comes back. So when the hand is over the face, the energy tends to hit the third eye and the crown. And then it really, if your energy has been purified and flowing, it really can lead to a very deep connection very quickly. It's inward, it's an outward, and it's ultimately neither, because you're in presence. And you don't care whether it's inward or outwards, because you're literally in the middle of that flow. And it doesn't even have to even be a flow. It's just literally, it's all around you, it's in you, it's just there. And you stay in that presence of there-ness and in that communion that doesn't even need to have any words to it. All right. We'll just spend a couple minutes here. Well, under a minute, but let's just do it here. Teaching came to me, which I will give probably in the spring. I wrote it down. Gratitude. Gratitude is the most powerful form of prayer. So often, my prayers are just thank yous. Thank you for a wonderful day. Thank you for this. Thank you. Thank you for my connection with you. Thank you. Thank you. It's the most powerful form of prayer. So it doesn't mean you can't ask for things, but we should always remember that gratitude from our heart, which signifies our love for God, is ultimately at the very core. There's a Twitter post that I wanted to give, because I know the teaching will be in the future. So maybe I'll finalize it today, and people can look on I guess it's called X now, at HP Shalom, and then you could see the post. So let's do this. The tree of life. This is detailed. And this is intellectual, and it can be a little dense. Hence why I really wanted to encourage people to practice. I don't want people to get stuck into intellectual frameworks and then stay there. But at the same time, I think it's important for us to understand what is going on. So the tree of life. So you don't need to remember every detail of what I'm going to share. There's going to be really a lot of information here, like much more than I feel comfortable in giving. But I went through it 3 times and I couldn't figure out where I wanted to edit. It's just so such a beautiful teaching. There's so much there. And I felt it wouldn't come across the same way if I did it sort of lightly. And I've done it before in a more lighter way in October, I think over the summer. But I kind of wanted to give really something very in-depth and complete. Just listen and take away from it what you take away from it, and know the teaching's always there. You can go back to it. And, often when I was presented with more detailed teachings, the first pass, you're just kind of getting, the first time through it, the lay of the land. Kind of what he's saying, where he's going, where he ends up, or she. And then the next time, since I already had the basic understanding, I started getting more into understanding of the various details. And then by the third time through it, I was really understanding kind of really what was going on. And the fourth time, if I ever went there, I was really able to memorize a lot of the details more in a complete way, or just retain them. This is one of these teachings. So don't get caught up in all the details. Just try to get the general idea of what's going on and not get overwhelmed. Also get comfortable. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as I can, but also in a way that makes sense. So we may be here a little while. I did not want to cut this in half. And there will be more next week in a different way. Next week's going to be even more profound. So don't mix next week. It's all going to pull together very well next week. And yeah. So, but today is more technical and very beautiful and very profound. All right. So we were discussing Kundalini energy over the last 2 weeks and last October. And there are similarities between the tree of life and the Kundalini and the chakra system that I've been describing. And they both discuss on how to balance energies and to clear them, how it works, how more cleared energy flows. It's more a tree of life. The Kundalini is very much on how to go about clearing them in certain ways, energetically, how it works. This is the system, if you go merging, showing how they fit in. So the Kundalini could be the roots of our tree, the flow of the sap through the system of the tree. And the tree of life can be seen as how that manifests in our connection with God and in our actions. They're complementary, but they speak about different things. So they very much work well together in the sense that it gives a different understanding that each one individually can't fully give, in a way. And this today is really going to show how they're a little different and how they're the same. Okay? So we're going to launch into this. So get comfortable. All right. People want to take notes. That's great. If not, the teaching's there. Going to be on Facebook. The YouTube. So if you look on your screen, you have the tree of life. Let me see if I could make this a little bigger. All right. So hopefully people can read what's written and maybe blow it up on your screen if you need to see it clearly, because we are really going to discuss every Sefirot, which is the circular areas in each one. So to sort of briefly summarize from the last 2 weeks. So Kundalini is about personal energy, emotions, and inner transformation. It deals how energy moves in the body through chakras, through breath work, and through balancing the left and right channels, the masculine and feminine channels, like we do with the pranayama, with the use of the breath. Also, meditation and prayer also helps move energy through the channels and to heal, as well as does yoga and exercise, proper eating, proper drinking, even medications help with the balance if there's imbalances. And it describes how emotions and consciousness evolve, solar and lunar forces that balance, leading to self-awareness and emotional regulation and healing. It also explains how individuals awaken spiritually from the rising of the Kundalini energy through the central channel, or the movement of energies through the right and left channels, removing blockages, right? Removing all those little beaver dams. So our life force, our chi, is able to move and integrate into the whole, which gives us greater amounts of chi to live with. And so it sort of all becomes available as opposed to scattered and blocked, and therefore it's not available, right? It's like having little bank accounts, but you don't have access to them, right? This is all, it's all available. It's all there and therefore all usable. So the tree of life is more about spiritual energy, divine order, and the movement of consciousness through the higher planes into our lives. It's how divine energy descends. So from the kether, the crown, and above, see the little Hebrew above in the diagram I have here. Okay, sort of the pale blue, into our lives. Okay, our physical lives is number 10, the kingdom. Okay, at the bottom. This is how we manifest on this earth. Okay. So it's basically how it descends and manifests into our world from the Kether to the Malkuth. How spiritual consciousness ascends back to God. Teaching of Jacob's ladder and the return path through the Sefirot, which will be next week. How a person's soul structure aligns with the divine will. And each Sefirah represents a stage of spiritual integration and divine flow. So the tree of life, to sort of give people the cheat sheet of where we're going, help bring greater understanding of, so hopefully things will flow better as I'm going into detail. So the tree of life is a divine map of consciousness, energy, and creation. It describes how divine energy, the Or Ein Sof, flows from the higher spiritual realms, the Keter, down into the physical world, Malkuth, shaping both the universe and human consciousness. This energy moves through the 10 Sefirot, which represents the different aspects of divine and personal transformation. So just like Kundalini energy rises through the chakras, divine energy must move freely through the Sefirot, aligning, purifying and balancing each one. If blockages exist, a person experiences spiritual, emotional, and physical disharmony. When the flow is clear, divine consciousness can manifest fully within. So here we really see how the tree of life teaching is similar to Kundalini, yet how it's different and how they complement each other. So simply, Kundalini is a personal transformation, energy, emotions, human experience. The tree of life has a greater focus on spiritual transformation, divine structure, ascension, and God consciousness, and how we manifest those things or not manifest those things in our daily life, and how to attain the proper balance and also to clear. So we have the proper balance. So that aspect is similar to Kundalini, attaining the proper balance and clearing. So we have a more enlightened thinking and actions as we live more. And the tree of life has a similar teaching. As we clear, we bring up through Jacob's ladder that teaching, and we live more in alignment with divine will and have more of a purified life. So similar, see? So Kundalini is more about the energy system, the physical system structure within our lives, and which leads to spiritual growth and divine connection. The tree of life is the divine map that guides that energy into alignment with God. So it's not so much focused on how the energy moves within us, the freeway and the structure, the blood vessels, the nerves, the chakras, the nadis, all of that. It's more of higher states and how we're purified, how we go living our balanced life. So it's a much more spiritual map. And without energetic purification, called Kundalini healing, the tree of life cannot be fully activated. The energy can't flow properly at a more manifested aspect if at the core the energy doesn't flow properly in the body. You see, it's the importance of doing that pranayama, meditation, and all of this helps heal the energetic balances that exist within our body so the tree of life can become fully activated. If you don't have the proper flow at your core, you really can't have the proper flow of divine alignment. Understand? So the Kundalini is the energy behind the process, which is really not focused in the tree of life teachings. Hence why they complement each other. And the tree of life is the map where the energy goes and what it does spiritually. And also in our actions and thinking and discipline. It's focused on that. Be very hard to progress on the tree of life without healing our energy, our blockages, our imbalances, because blockages lead to disturbing emotions, wrong thinking, and wrong actions. You see? It can't flow and lead to something good if it's disturbed or blocked. And so, as we clear these blockages and realign our emotions, which are caused by blocked energy, but then emotions that are disturbed also end up blocking energy. So you have a chicken and the egg situation where they each reinforce each other, which is why it's hard to heal these things. So you have to work on the energetic level, and you have to work on the emotional level. So you disengage that sort of circular recreation and re-solidification. You learn to lessen that feedback. So by working on your emotions and how you handle emotions, I'll be giving those teachings in the spring, but through psychotherapy, through awareness, and making conscious decisions not to react in certain ways, and how to go about diffusing situations, that weakens the reinforcement or the deepening of energetic blocks, and then working directly with the energetic blocks through the pranayama I'm teaching, exercise, proper eating, yoga or acupuncture, massage. Do you see? You work directly with the energy, helps lessens the energetic force, which creates disturbing emotions, which in turn reinforce the blocks. So as you clear these, everything begins to flow in harmony within the Sefirot. The divine energy that flows from God, the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light that animates our body. So in a way, our chi, our prana, the life force within the breath that animates us, which I spoke about in the Kundalini teachings. So that aspect comes from God in the Tree of Life teachings, and as well in the Kundalini, it comes from the source of life. It's the boundless divine energy that emanates from the infinite, the Ein Sof, and flows down through the Sefirot. And it structures reality and consciousness, our reality and our consciousness. So when an energy is blocked within a Sefirot and divine energy cannot flow freely, it disrupts the natural flow of divine consciousness, which is supposed to flow through us. So the divine flow of consciousness would be Eden before the fall, when we were in union with Hashem. When that flow became disrupted, it gave rise to imbalanced thoughts, emotions, and actions. These disturbances in turn reinforced energetic blockages, like I mentioned before, creating a cycle that keeps people trapped in lower awareness. Like I mentioned before, in the Kundalini teachings, you live through the lower chakras. While the Sefirots remain structurally connected, the disharmony prevents divine energy from flowing freely, limiting spiritual realization and the embodiment of higher consciousness, and then living in a higher vibration as a consequence. And when their body and emotions are aligned, the Or Ein Sof, the divine light, the divine energy, divine consciousness can flow through unobstructed, allowing a person to embody divine consciousness in a more natural and effortless way. So Kundalini healing aligns and clears energetic pathways. The Tree of Life ultimately is about guiding and structuring the spiritual ascent. Without Kundalini perfection, the person is stuck in the Malkuth, the physical world, in an unbalanced way, because the energy doesn't flow with a divine purification, and then there's no divine ascent. They become trapped in the negative aspects of each Sefirot when they're not in proper balance, when they don't flow in a way that the Or Ein Sof isn't I'll get into that a little earlier, but later, but they become disturbed. The good aspects don't really manifest because of blockages. And that blocks the Or Ein Sof from flowing freely and giving rise to a divine manifestation, an Emmanuel manifestations in my teaching, that is more in alignment with the thinking and the actions of a higher spiritual being. We become more earthbound in our imperfections. So when the energy flows properly through the tree of life, the tree of life becomes active, not just as a concept, see, not just intellectual, but it literally becomes a living spiritual structure within each one of us. So this is a Kabbalistic teaching, and in certain Kabbalistic teachings, there are teachings on breath, sound, and energy practices, which activates divine consciousness. Working with breath, sound, and energy helps unlock the energetic flow within one's body. And we also learned how to clear our vessels, clearing our souls so that divine energy can flow properly. It's very much like in the Kundalini teachings of clearing our nadis, our energy channels, for Kundalini to rise. So it's very much about how we unlock the ascent in the more of the Kundalini teachings. And the tree of life doesn't so much describe an explicit energetic model how to do so. It more describes a more spiritual model of what happens. It describes how fire and flow between the Sefirots sort of work, but not so much through modern energy work. See the difference here? I think I'm trying to make it very clear. So with the Kundalini, we really learn how to work to fix energy blockages in a way we could put into practice. So it's just one level deeper. It's more structural. It's more, here's the structure that underpins everything. So the Keter is the crown in the head, divine consciousness. Tiferet is the heart. It's the balance and the harmony. It's where the masculine and feminine aspects of the tree of life balance. Find balance. Yesod is where the genitalia is, the secret chakra, the sexual chakra, the second chakra in the Kundalini teaching. It's where the energy transfers, and it's the foundation of life. The Malkut is the feet. It's our earthly connection. It's our manifestation on this planet. Okay? I'm going to quickly go through each one. So I just really want to make this complete teaching. The crown. Number 1. Keter is the highest, the source of divine will and the bridge between the infinite and the manifest. It is beyond intellect, representing pure potential and divine intention. In the soul, it is our higher spiritual connection, beyond conscious thought. So with the cathedral within, it is the most purified form with sort of in us, where it really manifests from within. It's sort of the altar of our divine, where where Hashem lives, or where the Shekinah manifests within us. Wisdom, second. It is the intuition and the ability to perceive truth instantly. Understanding, third. It represents the process of learning and refining wisdom. So these three, the head of the tree, form an intellectual triad. These three really represent different ways of perceiving wisdom and the source of it. So, kindness and mercy, number 4. It's compassion, love, and the desire to help others unconditionally. 5th, the strength. It is self-control, responsibility, and moral clarity. 6, beauty, harmony. It's the heart, the ability to respond with both love and wisdom. It's a balance between the two. I'll get more into that. So these three, it's the emotional triad. It's the heart of the tree. Then there's victory, and that's number 7, victory, endurance. It's determination, confidence, and ability to take action. 8, splendor, humility. It is gratitude, acceptance, and ability to yield to a greater purpose. 9, foundation. It represents emotional and spiritual integrity, the foundation of meaningful relationships. So these three represent the functional triad, the engine of action, how we sort of act in the world. Number 10, kingdom, it's manifestation. It represents presence, action, and bringing one's spiritual purpose into tangible reality. It's also how we act in this world, in an aligned, good way, perfected way, or not so much. It could be aligned, or it could be disturbed. Okay. So basically, it's perception, how to see, act, balanced with a balanced manifestation. That brings in the entire tree of life. It all leads to a balanced manifestation through wisdom. So, the third eye with the heart causes actions and alignment. If you move it a little more into the Kundalini spectrum. So if you look at the chart, So the pathways of the tree of life represent the energetic flows between Sefirot, divine emanations. They're linked traditionally to 22 Hebrew letters, each representing a unique divine energy that connects different aspects of creation. The vertical, that means the up and down, represents the three pillars of the tree of life. The right pillar, mercy, victory, and wisdom. It's the expansive, active, and giving energies associated with the masculine aspects. Remember, this is not human sex of female and male. These are spiritual aspects of the masculine and the feminine. So don't attribute this as this is male and this is female. That would be a completely wrong understanding. Okay? Because each of these aspects live both in men and female. If we have too much of one and not enough of the other, it leads to imbalances, which the Tree of Life teachings will show. So the white pillar is the masculine aspects. We see the similarity with the Kundalini teachings here. Left pillar, strength, splendor, and understanding. These are the restrictive, structuring, and discerning energies associated with feminine aspects in this model. The central pillar, the path of balance, integrating both sides into divine harmony. Right? More like the central channel. See? The diagonal path is the balancing forces between the opposite polarities of the right and left channels. The right, the masculine, and the feminine. And I'll show how they're a little bit the opposite of each other, how they're both needed, so they're not in lack of balance. So it's not so much that they're opposite, is that one channel left by themselves would lead to unbalanced actions, imbalanced thinking, imbalanced wisdom. You need both. And I think that's really where the strength of the Tree of Life teachings are. So the diagonal paths, the paths that are sort of at an angle, right, for non-native speakers, English speakers, they serve a bridge between active and passive energies, allowing divine light to flow in a controlled manner, rather it being chaotic in chaos. And it allows there to be a balance between the masculine and feminine aspects. When they're in balance, the or Ein Sof flows uninhibitedly and in a proper way. And these pathways shows how a person moves from different states of consciousness, and we find their inner balance. And the horizontal paths, these are the paths that are straight from left and right, represent tensions and integrations within this plane of manifestation. So these links opposing Sefirot, so different, shows the harmonizing of extreme qualities, which I will get into a little later. So if you look at severity and mercy, is balanced through the Sefirot of beauty, which is called Tiferet. So let's go a little bit into the feminine and masculine aspects, because this understanding is very important, because we begin to understand where we're lacking. Like too much of feminine energy isn't good. Too much of masculine energy isn't good. When we come to an understanding how we have these imbalances, we begin to see how our thinking, how our actions is not in balance. And therefore, by the use of our minds, this is where our minds can be important, we could realize where we're not able or not fully making proper decisions. Like if we're passive and depressed, we don't take correct actions. There's also people who are very impulsive and don't think and are too active. They can't settle down, they can't focus, they have too much fire. It's the balancing between the two, the right sort of middle way of doing it, like quote unquote just right, not too hot, not too cold, not too much fire, not too much water. You see, not too active, not too sedentary. And when we understand this, then we could make conscious decisions when we realize we're reacting not quite, or acting not quite in a way that's more in our past, habitual, because we've always done that. And if we're really stuck there, we can look at modalities in our world to help. Psychotherapy, you see, to work through why our thinking process through our minds isn't quite where it should be, and work on that. Do you see? Then also on a deeper energetic level through massage, meditation, acupuncture, diets, right? Working more with the energy. But we also could work directly with our minds, which a lot of people do. And if we find that there's chemical imbalances, we could work through psychiatry and have a doctor who gives us medicine that works directly with our minds. Do you see how it all works? But as a spiritual person, I find it, and through my understanding of energy, which I found fascinating, and this is how I was able to do most of my work, with also the other modalities as well, all of them, you are able to change quickly because you're working with the basic structure of our bodies, which is energy. The heat, the flow of and how our energy is, the different disturbances to the different extremes, whatever, give rise to emotions. Emotions give rise to thoughts, and thoughts give rise to actions. Do you see? So psychotherapy and psychiatry, medicine aspect, work with our thoughts. Right? We work with our thoughts, which can affect our emotions, right? So if we think, oh my God, they did this, this, and this, and this to me. Oh my God, I really dislike them. I really hate them. That gives rise to the emotion, which in turn inflames the thoughts, which in turn inflames the emotions. Do you see? That's really strong, right? And on the energetic aspect, that creates blockages and flows in our bodies that orients with the emotions and the thinking, and therefore our bodies become disturbed in the same aspects as our emotions and thoughts, and therefore it reinforces the emotions which create these thoughts. This is how people really become stuck, because they all reinforce each other in a certain way. Hence, if we engage on the energy practices, we work on the emotional practice, we work on the intellectual aspects, all of which give rise to our actions, external actions, speaking, not speaking, acting or not acting, which is also an action. Not speaking is the action of not speaking. Not speaking your truth when you should is an imbalance. Not acting when you should is a manifestation of an imbalance through inaction. Might need to play that back a few times to fully understand what I mean here. An action could be in doing or in not doing. Not doing is an action of not doing. So by working at these different levels, we start fixing it to an aligned way. Difference between somebody who's walking in a spiritual, religious way, walking in their truth, a proper a good mensch, good person, an Emmanuel manifestation, a full one, is one who's working in the full perfected decisions, thinking, emotions are calm, the energy flows. It's a divine flow manifested physically. The tree of life, that would be how it manifests in the 10th, the kingdom. So this flow, so do you see the different elements? So by having the awareness of energy, you're now able, with the techniques and the knowledge of how to go about working with energy, which I think I've made very clear, the different ways over, the last 2 years, specifically over the last couple weeks, and in October and over the summer, we now are empowered on how to work at that level. Emotional, you're getting an understanding that's more intermediate, a little tricky, because they're emotions. We're going to get more into that into the spring. Thinking, well, our culture has a lot of techniques on working and thinking, and a lot of people stuck in their heads, so we all know how that works in a certain way, and that's mainly where we engage. But working with how it's already manifested, it has so much strength already. It's hard to engage directly with that because the energetic flow of the emotions just, we say we're overwhelmed. I couldn't think. It just was too much, so I just acted, right? It's such a pressure. It's such overwhelming that our thoughts and our actions just sort of happen. So we're working at the deeper levels, which are actually much more accessible because we're less overwhelmed. We're working with the flows, which leads to the manifestation, which leads to bad karma, bad mitzvah, and ultimately where we end up when we transition out of this world. Yes? So this is the importance of these teachings. So, from the tree of life, the feminine Sefirot. Sefirot 3, we're on the left side. Understanding. I'm just going to say what they mean and not their Hebrew names because I think it's going to help more as to what each one is, okay? Understanding. It receives the raw wisdom of number 2, which is wisdom, and structures it into a discernible form. Okay, so remember there's a balancing between the feminine and the masculine. So understanding takes the raw wisdom and structures this into a describable form. It's the formation and manifestation of thought into reality. Strength and judgment. The next one down. It's a restrictive force that disciplines and refines raw expression. It provides boundaries to chesed, mercy, number 4, right? Unlimited giving. So the discipline of when to be more overly compassionate, overly merciful, it's sort of a temperance of being overly on the masculine to more of an understanding to be able to moderate that flow. I'm going to get more into that. So it's the balancing of the masculine and the feminine aspects of both, which is starting to be made a little clearer. This is sort of the example that's given here. It's like a mother enforcing discipline. It ensures that love does not become destructive indulgence. Do you see? It's not all love, but it's also realizing you can't fully indulge in the love if you're raising a child by allowing everything to go. There requires a certain discipline of saying, my love is also expressed in a way that might be a little more strict and might have to punish the child to make sure that I just don't just give into that flow without there being proper boundaries. You see the balance that's going on? Yes, and you could see how Yahweh in the Old Testament made that balance, the unconditional love to the Israelites, but also there was a certain disciplining and a removal of His grace so they could learn the consequences of their actions and then be able to come back in greater commitment to the covenant that He has with them. An example would be the time of the prophet Jeremiah and the fall of the first temple and the Babylonian exile. Very dramatic expression, painful expression of what that is. Does it make sense? So, Hod, splendor, reverberation. It's reflective, internalized force of victory. It's concerned with conscious refinement rather than instinctive action. It represents the mindful integration of divine energy into detailed understanding. So it's the internal aspect of consciousness to moderate reaction. Does that make sense? Masculine. Wisdom. So now we're on the right side. That's the initial spark of creation and divine inspiration. It's associated with the father aspect of divinity. Pure, expansive force that needs Bina, the feminine aspect, number 3, to balance it, to structure it, provide a structure to it, how it goes about. Correct? Mercy, number 4. The force of unlimited giving and love, which expresses pure generosity and openness, which needs gevurah, judgment, to prevent it from being overwhelming or excessive. Victory, it's a source of endurance, dominance, and persistence. Drives action forward without hesitation. It needs Hod, splendor, to refine its force into wisdom. Wise action. Balanced. See? So the Kabbalistic traditions emphasize the balance of the energies, the harmonization of the left and the right, which elevates the central pillar. Tefereth and Yesod. So we're seeing some similarities to the Kundalini teachings, but these have entirely different aspects that are associated with them, and the structure is slightly different. Okay, so it's not fully aligning, but we're able to see how there's certain similarities. It's all about coming into balance. So the solar and lunar energies, Chesed and Gevurah, are integrated through the Tiferet of beauty, which is the heart of the tree, sort of like our heart. And the central channel aligns with the path of Tiferet, Yesod, Kether, leading to divine enlightenment. So, balance comes from harmonizing different aspects. So, if there's too much mercy, too much, lost my place here. So, if there's too much mercy, you add some discipline. Too much action, you add the balance of reflection. Right? Too much spiritual focus, you ground yourself more in the physical world. So it's sort of a harmonization of different aspects. So if someone has too much chesed, they are too forgiving, too lenient, without boundaries. That could lead to a whole world of problems, let me tell you from my own personal experience. If a person is only in Gevurah, number 5, they're too strict, too harsh, lacking compassion. Too many boundaries, not forgiving, not generous enough. And Tiferet ensures that mercy and judgment are applied in the right measure at the right time, which is wisdom, with capital W. Tiferet, number 6, beauty, is where a balance of human consciousness reside. Beauty is also meaning harmony. It's the central point of integration of the tree of life. It's where mercy and expansion are balanced with judgment and restriction. It's all about aligning our inner flow for divine service so we may manifest Hashem here on earth through our actions, our thoughts, our emotions. It's number 6 is the harmonization of the opposites. An aligned human being represents the balance between two extremes. Too much chesed can lead to overindulgence. Too much discipline can lead to cruelty. Sefirot is also linked to Dat, knowledge, which is an invisible Sefirot connecting the higher divine consciousness to the human world. Which I have an example here I'm going to put up. There it is, right, in the dotted lines. Okay. So the hidden aspect of Sefirot is its potential for enlightenment. It is the place where the higher divine world can be consciously accessed through proper alignment. It's associated with truth, beauty, and divine clarity. Back to the other one here. So someone who lives there has mastered the equilibrium of forces in his life. They do not act with impulse or over-calculation. You see the balance here? So it's the balancing and Sefirot of number 7 and 8 here, which I just mentioned. They are not lost in desire, number 9, or materialism, number 10. Instead, they have elevated their consciousness, aligning their mind trying to find the numbers. I'm quite able to find. Aligning, so they have, so not lost in desire, materialism, and then they've elevated their mind to 2 and 3 at the very top, which is wisdom and understanding, leading to actions 7 and 8 imbalanced in a single harmonious expression of divine action and manifestation. They've taken their ego out of the equation. Any imbalances in over action, reaction, not thinking, excess, right? So there's a proper manifestation in number 10. The tree of life enters into a proper balance. You see, it's a balancing. It's the removal of having an improper flow of sort of emotional energy or thinking, yes, which leads to an improper action, an inability to balance the masculine and feminine sides, and too much with one and not enough of the other leads to a certain thinking that's off, which could lead to disturbing emotions, which leads to improper manifestations in our lives through our speech or non-speech, actions or non-actions. Yes? So the 10th, a perfected human being who embodies full divine presence, would be linked to the Messiah principle, which I call, in sort of what I teach, the full Emmanuel, the embodied perfection on this planet of Yahweh, of Hashem. If the being is in full perfect alignment. Does that make sense? The tree of life can be seen as the divine blueprint of what a human should be or could be, as a vessel of divine harmony between the higher worlds, 1, 2, and 3, and the lower worlds, our manifestation. The Sefirot in the central channel, right, the ones in between, the masculine and the feminine, really creates a higher form of awareness. It's the convergence of all energies bringing spiritual integration and divine presence. Because the Orion Soth is able to flow. And when it flows, it just really manifests in a pure way down the central trunk of the tree. Because it's all balanced. The proper amount of feminine energy mixes with the proper balance of the masculine energy. And it unites. The proper flow, if you go back to the Kundalini teachings, up the central channel. It's undisturbed. The blockages are cleared enough that we have a flow that's not disturbed from too much ego, too much aggression, too much happy, too much sadness. It's all the emotional states. It leads to a balanced person who can still feel sadness, who still feels joy, mind you. This is not some sort of unemotional person. Still have the emotions, but they're expressed in the right way, at the right time, for the right reasons, in the right amount. Right? The actions are balanced. The emotions are balanced. The actions are appropriate to what's in front of them in an objective way. It's not the projection of what they think it is. It's not reacting to what's not there. So they're overreacting or underreacting, giving the situation. It is clear, it is accurate, it is precise, and it is well executed. Well, the end result, the end action and non-action is exactly what needs to be done. And one's vibration definitely is higher because it's more perfected. So there's a clearer seeing beyond what we normally see, to be able to see a wider picture of what's going on. You're able to see beyond the person's action and see, oh, they're very damaged, or they're reacting to something that happened this morning. It leads to these higher states of empathic abilities, psychic abilities, ability to be able to see beyond, because one is able to see more. It's a clearing of what we think a human can do to a greater understanding of the full capabilities that we have while here in this body. Do you see? Then it leads to higher actions, things that we don't think are possible on doing here, levels of healing, levels of acting, right? The ability, psychic abilities, all sorts of things. Greater unlocking abilities of the mind, to do things with the mind that one wouldn't think one can do merely with one's thoughts. You see, so it's an unlocking of all of God's graces when we are able to find that harmony and balancing within us. We become used by the divine. It's not that he uses us, but we become agents. We become vessels. We have an ability to manifest Yahweh's will here. We become more in alignment with an Emmanuel manifestation. And there are so many different levels of that. Very beginning, more intermediate, advanced, full embodiment, which is quite a thing. And it's still you. There's no erasure of oneself. I'm stepping away a little bit from the Kabbalah teachings to what I've learned, so some of this might not be fully in these teachings of the Tree of Life, mind you, but I'm showing how that could manifest. Okay, so it's still you. There's no erasure of who you are. It's just the best form of you. Does that make sense? You're refining yourself. So if you use gold, right, there's gold nuggets, but they could be different nuggets with impurities, and also nuggets that are infused with other forms of rock. So you break it all down, right? You break it, so you have mostly the nuggets, and then if you want to refine it further, you melt it, and you remove any impurities that might be in there. You see, so you're refining yourself, but it's still you. Okay, that's important understanding. You're going to manifest with a certain personality. You're going to be called to do certain things and not other things, based on how you're integrated, how your propensities of more subtle energies of something I didn't teach too much, but about the elements, how much sky, how much air you have, how much ground you have, how much water, how much fire. People have more of a fire in the balanced way. They'll be more active. They might be a defender, a policeman, very manifested, an explorer, right? That would be more their manifestation, right? And if you have more of an air, you might be more of a thinker, of a philosopher. But you're still grounded. You see, it's the perfected form of where you might have a tendency to go. And with that personality, fire, more laughing, likes parties, very engaged. You're more water. You might want to keep more to yourself. You see, so it's sort of balance, and whatever we have in our makeup, in our constitution, would tend how we manifest with the personality traits of what that is. So I hope that helps bring a greater understanding. People have sometimes a misunderstanding that it erases themselves. That is a misunderstanding. It's the best form of who you are and who you can be and who you will become when you leave this planet, and the frequencies of hate and depression or anything that's not balanced fall away, because they don't exist in higher frequencies. It's all perfected up there. But there's still a you, but the best form of you. And through this sort of spiritual technology, the spiritual knowledge from very wise people, we're able to understand on how to make that manifest today as part of our path, helping us to increase our frequency as we purify and become closer and more what God wishes us to be as His children. And by doing so, we heal ourselves, we heal our society, we heal our planet. Because we're no longer acting in ways that are unbalanced, which manifest in our families, in how our lives are, and ultimately how our society and planet is. Yes? Okay, I've gotten a little bit ahead of myself, so I'm going to go back here. I may have to skip some things, but I hope that kind of helps understanding what is sort of been shown here in a very, very special way that's different from the Kundalini teachings, and how really is more helpful in certain ways than the Kundalini teachings, because it discusses a different aspect, dealing with emotions and mind and actions, manifestation. You see, it's complementary. You find my spot in my notes. Perfect. Wow, we're almost done. Okay. So one isn't just spiritually awakened, one is in perfect alignment with the divine order. So this is one reason, number 6, is also called the throne of divine presence, because the place where the divine can manifest fully within a human. Kingdom, number 10, I'm not going to forget that one. It's extremely important. It represents the full manifestation of divine intention in the physical world, assuming all the Sefirot are in proper balance. It can be said it is the feet of the divine, meaning that everything that originates in the higher realms, the upper Sefirot above, descends through the tree of life and ultimately manifests in the physical world. Smalkuth. It's the physical reality as the final expression of what happens in the Sefirot above. It represents in its perfected state, in its optimal state, the state which we would hope we could manifest individually. It's the harmonized divine human. It is where a human's actions and life manifest into a perfected manifestation in reality. Person will express divine wisdom and harmony in their daily actions. And this is why it's helpful to be around really refined and perfected masters and teachers, because we could feel what that energy is like. We can see how they move, how fast, how mindful, how slow, how they sip a glass of water, how they go about eating. Everything about them is a teaching of the divine flow. And by being around that energy and perceiving it, hearing their speech, feeling their energy, seeing their movements and how they go about it, it subtly realigns us to what might be a better way of being. It is a very profound teaching because they embody a properly balanced person in how they manifested that based on who they are at their core, which will be slightly different or very different from you. But by seeing that proper balance of action, how it manifests helps guide us along our way. Yes? So if the divine energy flows properly through all the Sefirot, it manifests in Sefirot number 10 as harmony, divine order, and higher consciousness. But if the energy is blocked or distorted or chaotic in the upper Sefirots, then our manifestation is dysfunction, suffering, and imbalance. You see? That makes sense? So we can manifest too reckless without proper wisdom. We can manifest as too oppressive, cruel, or having too much fear. We could manifest with too much in a confused way, which we exercise self-deception and have internal conflict. So our world kingdom, right, is the world of action, speech, and embodiment. It can be seen as the daughter or as a bride. It could also be seen as the Shekhinah, divine presence. It's the bride of the divine, meaning it's where divine potential unites with physical existence. See, this is where it really gets fascinating. So you kind of have to really learn what's going on, the structure, right? Can be a little tedious, can also be very fascinating. But this is really where the rubber hits the road. But you kind of have to have the understanding of the details to really understand how we can act, the balance we need to find, right? But this is really how it manifests. Why everything else is important. Yes? So it is the bride of the divine, meaning where the divine potential unites with physical existence. It's feminine. Remember, it's not our male or female here. This is spiritual femininity versus masculine femininity. Different. It's where we receive all the energies from the upper Sefirot. But it's active, masculine, because it acts on those energies. It brings them into form. It manifests them. That act of manifestation from potential, feminine, to manifesting it, masculine. So it's sort of the bride, receives all of these energies, the mixtures, the good, the bad, the imbalanced, and it gives form. The energies of the energy of our body, the emotions, the thinking to form. Yes, but it doesn't so much go into the energy. It starts emotional and thinking. The imbalances of a more manifested state. Yes? So it's not so much kingdom, the manifestation of its own energy, but it's really the influence of the entire tree. It's really the equal sign. This, right? More 3, less 5, more 6, not so much number 2, right? Equals kingdom, how it manifests. It's the equal sign. It's how everything that happened on the other Sefirots manifest in your life. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And as we clear and find the right balance, there's a lot more good and a lot more beautiful and a lot less bad and ugly. And where there's more disturbances and imbalance, there's a lot more bad and a lot more ugly. Right? And so it is with our world as well. And we see it in the proof of ourselves, how we act, how it manifests to our families, and our lives overall. And entering into proper balance not only brings us into proper balance with God, but it also brings us into a happier, nicer, more wonderful life. Yeah? So, kingdom does not generate its own energy. It's an equal sign. It channels the influence from the entire tree. In a way, it's like the moon. It does not have a light of its own, but reflects the light of the sun, all the Sefirots that lead into it. But it's also, like I mentioned, really masculine because it's the final stage of creation, because it's what actively brings divinity, or a more imperfected human being into its form, into its actions. It's just not a passive receiver. Optimally, it can be the force that turns divine will into reality. Right? It's an active. So if you're a prophet, like Jeremiah, he manifested and spoke and lived his life in order to help manifest through his teachings a divine guidance. You see? So he didn't run from it, he didn't do it. Same with Moses. All these examples, right? This just wasn't a passive receiver. He in turn did actions. So that's the action, is the masculine force of that, which is educated and taught and known in oneself, the truths of what one should do, but one puts it into practice. It's not a depressive state where one has problems manifesting. That would be an imbalance. You could have all the wisdom in the world, but if you don't manifest it, it's kind of stuck with you. And if you're meant to manifest it, that imbalance in that Sefirot, in those two Sefirot, causes the will in the kingdom, the manifestation, not to manifest. So it would be too much lunar and not enough solar. In its perfected state, it's called kingdom, that rules the physical world. It's the place where divine sovereignty is expressed. And in an aligned person, that divine balance, like I mentioned earlier, is shown through all of their life choices. That means their work, relationships, speech, actions are a reflection of divine alignment and truth with a capital T. You become a righteous person. Your actions are aligned. There's aligned justice, aligned thinking, aligned actions. So for an ideal human being, that means all spiritual knowledge and divine inspiration, and you do receive it because there is a flow to you from divinity, are not just felt or thought, but are lived and acted upon. And it's one reason why good deeds, mitzvot, are so important in Judaism, because action is the final expression of divine consciousness. And a proper action also puts one in greater alignment with divinity, because we're working with our actions, which in turn would help correct our thoughts and our emotions beneath. Do you see? So it's from the bottom up and the top sort of in. This sort of creating a proper feedback of wholeness, not from greater disalignment. And ultimately, in its perfected state, it's the manifestation of divine consciousness in a human being. And it also represents how the world should be, a manifestation of divine order on earth. The proper flow of the Sefirot, the kingdom, would be Eden. Does that make sense? Where everything, Eden before the fall, when everything was in its divine order. It's the highest frequency of some sort of material manifestation, which may have been much more energetic than this more physical world we live in, mind you, or could have been very physical as well, but in a whole different frequency of being. Yes? And this is also one reason why Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, is such a fundamental aspect. Because the more human beings align with divine truth, the more the kingdom of God is restored to its rightful place. And its rightful place is where humans live. Makes sense. So we don't have to leave this world so much to be restored to it. This world becomes more it. Do you see? There is no death in Eden. Right? There was no hurt in Eden. There was no illness in Eden. There was no pain. There was awareness, and we lived with God. There was no separation. Yet we weren't God. We had a relationship with God. We weren't divorced from God. Do you see? So as we align individually, we can live more in God's presence while here, more in alignment with His will, and restore ourselves to a proper balance of emotions and thinking and actions that's more in keeping with Him. And then we become healthier because our energies are less distorted within our body. There's a proper flow. It's not stuck with beaver dams all over the place, which affect us. So we see here now how this way of perceiving through this beautiful tree of life really is extremely precious and helpful in an entirely different way than the Kundalini teachings. But at the same time, one has an understanding on how to help this flow come about through the different Sefirot. And at the same time, this helps us understand how to work with ourselves in a very different way. That's very powerful. That's a little bit removed from the flow of energy through our thinking and having proper balance of different energies, but not the core energies, but energies of thought, energies that give rise to our thoughts, our emotions. It's very powerful and shows us where that alignment could lead us and the role of God. We're clearing the dirt from our cathedral, so the flow flows through us. So we don't have layers of dirt and broken stained glass, broken seats, maybe a lot of fog and smoke in the cathedral, so we can't see the altar. So we can't feel the Shekinah. Do you see? So when we get that clarity and cleansing, there's the flow coming right through in us without all these veils. And we are able to live in alignment, and it's effortless because it's there. That gold 24-karat nugget within us is just manifests with no obstacles. We go from the crown to beauty to foundation in the perfection of kingdom with a capital K. And the whole spiritual path is to live and to purify that flow in ever greater ways, in ever greater perfection. That's the path. A tree that gives beautiful fruit, that grows, provides shade during the summer to the animals, to us, that has fruit that nourishes life, where birds can live. It's a tree that's healthy, that everything is in balance. And it's a tree that weathers storms, weathers droughts, because its roots go deep. That lives the longest amount of time. The stronger it is, the more resistance it is to diseases that kill trees. If a wind blows off a branch, it's not a problem. Another branch can grow there, or the rest of the tree compensates for it. It's resilient, it's tough, yet it bends in the wind. Because if it's too tough and not resistant, and the tree can blow over. If the roots are too shallow, it can blow over. Does that make sense? And so it is with our lives. The tree is us. So the question is, what kind of tree are we? And how do we go about healing? What branches do we need to cut off because they're bad branches? Not in perfection. What trees do we need to encourage to grow? How is the health of our fruit? You can tell the health of a tree by the health of its fruit. Only a couple apples? Or are there hundreds? Or we can go with oranges. Whatever you think. Or flowers in your tree. Are they beautiful flowers or are they wilted? Are they a couple or is the whole tree full of flowers? And then we see, there's a little work. What's wrong with our tree? How do we go about healing it? There's an imbalance, there's an illness, there's disease, there's an improper flow of hormones in the brain. I need to grow more roots, I need more water. Do you see? So these teachings help us to be able to assess how we're not out of balance, and gives teachings on how to better enter into balance. And then also shows us what being in proper balance looks like. This empowers us. Knowledge empowers us. This is why I've spent so much time on this. This is also why one could look a little more deeper into the balance aspects and the imbalance aspects of the different Sefirot, which actually at the end of this I'm going to get into, to learn. But you don't want to get stuck in this teaching. It's to help get the gist out of it, get the details that you need, but don't go into a deep dive, because it's all about making it come about. And that's where the work comes in. That's where your practice comes in. This is where working with your history, your body, yourself, your personality, and making that change come about. Otherwise, this teaching is absolutely useless. Because it's about making the change. It's a guide. It's a map. It's an instruction manual in a very, very creative, smart, effective way, in a way that's just gorgeous. But it's meant to help us. Otherwise, it's just something, but if you don't swallow it, ingest it, chew on it, putting it into action, it really won't help as much. Okay. So, just to be clear, kingdom is the unification of the proper balance of the masculine and feminine aspects of the tree. Boom. There we are. So, it could be created as a womb, where babies are, cradle, the creation aspect, but acts like a king or queen, whichever one, but it's not a female or masculine king or queen. It's you are on your throne and you are manifesting those energies. So this is why a balanced person in their manifestation is called a righteous one, because they both receive divine inspiration and manifest it through their actions. So the Torah can be seen as a divine masculine energy, a giver of wisdom, and the people who read it, or the Tanakh, the Bible, the people who read it, those people who live in faith, and in this definition it could be discussed as Israel, the believers in God, not so much the location of the country, but those, the community of people who believe in God. So it's more of a community of people, not a physical location, is the divine feminine energy, the receiver of the Torah. You see, it's receptive. So when the people of God follow the Torah, the teachings, it becomes an active force within the people that brings divinity, divine religion in the world. And therefore, the people who receive switch to the masculine role of manifesting that truth. See? So it's the constant flow of receiving and manifesting, which mirrors kingdom's dual role. So in a way, I am manifesting in a masculine way these teachings, which aren't mine, they come from masters of old. Right? You're receiving it, feminine receptive, and I hope that it gives birth in you, that I've planted the seeds, so you in turn can manifest it in your lives. It's not enough to receive. One also needs to manifest it in one's life. The seed, which is planted, needs to grow into the tree. The medicine of teachings, medicine of wisdom, needs to flow through your tree to manifest that improvement, that realignment to divine will. And that is one's conscious choice. It's not passive. I guess passive medicine would be one that's on the table. The masculine aspect is you put it in your mouth, you ingest it so it could be active. So we need to make those active choices to manifest the wisdom. So we need to be not just the feminine, but also the masculine. So we need to put in the practice, the meditation, going to psychotherapy or psychiatry as needed through one's wisdom. You could always engage and see how it is. Always find good people. If you're not happy, run. But it doesn't mean they're telling you things you didn't want to hear. That could be a really good doctor, and you should really stay and hear it, however uncomfortable it be. But if you think they're not good and they're off, and there's wisdom to that, don't go there. Doing the yoga, proper food, pranayama, if it works for you, the wisdom of knowing you're doing it too softly, you're doing it not often enough, to the other extreme, you're going way too intense and too often. And that could change from time to time. Good times to do it, you're in a period of your life that you don't need it, so why you're doing it, or there's a period in life you really shouldn't do it. So there's the wisdom. You receive knowledge, but then the hope is you act on it. A feminine energy that is out of balance completely is, it receives, but that's all there is. And I guess a masculine energy that's out of balance, there's nothing that it receives, and yet it still manifests. No thinking, no wisdom, no guidance. More arrogant. So that's good. I guess that was meant to say, because that literally mirrors what I said at the beginning, and I did not mean to link the two at the end from the beginning. But this flow, I guess, really enforces the importance of learning and putting it into action. This is not only an intellectual engagement, but it's constructive. So here we go. I'm a little bit ahead of my notes. Without receptivity, without receiving and letting it take root, action becomes disconnected from wisdom. And there's no guidance on how to grow and better, more fulfilled connection to wisdom. And without action, all the wisdom and knowledge you may gain becomes unfulfilled. It never manifests. It doesn't really take root. A balanced person and a balanced world integrates both. So the energy zigzags between the masculine and the feminine as it descends through the tree of life, clearing distortions, and realigns the different branches of the tree to bring it into balance. And once this balance is refined, integrated, the energy stabilizes into this central pillar, the middle path, without excess in either extreme. From foundation, beauty, and crown, bringing alignment between heaven and earth and heaven, which is where I'm going into next week. Absolutely fascinating. I really live for this. To give a little tease to next week, as energy clears, it becomes like a ladder, stabilizing into a straight path of divine unity, which is teaching is Jacob's ladder. It's a metaphor for spiritual ascent through the Sefirot. So we were talking about descension. Now we're going to speak about the ascension. Descension, ascension. So the path of spiritual growth is wisdom. So this is all the different Sefirot. Wisdom leads to understanding, which forms mercy and strength, which leads to harmony, which directs endurance and humility, which is channeled through foundation to be fully expressed in kingdom, where divine purpose becomes real. So wisdom leads to understanding, which forms mercy, and strength, which leads to harmony, which directs endurance and humility, which is channeled through foundation, which means it is brought about through foundation to be fully expressed in kingdom. So it goes through foundation to be fully expressed in kingdom, which ultimately gives rise to divine purpose. which is manifested. Yes? So I always find it very helpful, and this is where I'm going to end. So that's what I just mentioned is ideally hopefully what should happen in a perfect world, and hopefully we become better and closer to that. But let's get into what happens if people are stuck in unbalanced Sefirah, which is, the human condition for the most part. It's just what imbalance and how severe it is. Okay? So if we're blocked in the cloud, sorry, got a little water. So if we're blocked in our crowns, we have a blocked connection to divine will, the symptoms of imbalance. This is really a good sort of cheat sheet, essence cheat on kind of how about, what to look into. I like making everything practical. As you can see, I try to make it real world examples, try to explain it in a clear way that we could all understand and identify with. This is literally like, here is just really the takeaway essence, So we all have our blockages. God knows I have mine. So in the crown, we're blocked. Our connection to divine will is blocked. The symptoms of this imbalance: confusion of purpose, feeling disconnected from higher guidance, spiritual numbness. How do we balance? Meditation, silence, surrendering our ego to divine wisdom, i.e., it's not about us, it's about what God wants, and learning to kind of let go our imperfect desires to give in to what we know we ought to do. It's purification. But then it's still us. But it's a purified form of us, a higher vibrational form of us. Remember, we are not erasing who we are at our core. Okay, it's important. It's a big misunderstanding that people have. That's why I'm reiterating it. Wisdom. Blocked, so if it's off, it's blocked intuition and creativity. So symptoms of this imbalance: lack of insight, difficulty thinking outside the box, excessive reliance on logic without inspiration. So meaning you over-rely on logic and you aren't inspired. How do we balance? Contemplation, learning new perspectives. Maybe even, here's an interesting one, dream journaling. Okay, I'm not a big journaler. I don't have the patience for that. But, for people, they like writing. This might be good. It's opening that creativity, opening to having that imagination. And it's a skillful way to go about working on it. So you see, there's an intention. I need to spend time to contemplate. So you're not normally somebody who contemplates. Well, you make the decision on working on creating that. So you could speak to people who are great contemplators, great thinkings, and ask their advice how to go about this. You can Google it. You can go on ChatGPT and ask, how do I go about deepening my contemplation? You can sort of force yourself to start learning more, to learn new perspectives. You have a friend that thinks very differently than you, right? You're still a friend. I had such a friend in college. We disagreed on everything. I remember once, senior year, I've known him for all 4 years. We're always ate together. We're always in the same dormitories together. Very different. I'm Californian. He was from Texas. I am on the liberal side of things. He was very, very conservative. more expansive religious thoughts, very, very fundamental. We couldn't have been more different. I'm more liberal arts. He was into physics and mathematics. Quite brilliant mind, I have to. But he had a wonderful personality. Good friend of mine. And I told once, and some other friend said something, and I said, I don't know how it came into it. It was a long time ago. But I said, I pointed to the friend we had in common. I said, me and this friend, I won't say his name, and I still remember his name, and I don't remember everybody's name in college. I said, we have not agreed on a single thing in 4 years. And I could tell that. The friend looked shocked when he saw me. I said, we haven't agreed on anything. We are the polar opposites. And he started nodding. He's like, yeah, we are. And I said, but I learned from him, and I see different perspectives. At the end of the day, I respect his perspective, even though I may not agree with it, and it's vice versa, on which a very good friendship was built. So you can engage with people that are different with you and learn how they perceive it, and that expands your mind, because he has a reality, and there are people who are like him, and there's people like me. And to have that understanding helps us grow in our wisdom. So does that make sense? But it's an intention, especially if you're not prone to having different perspectives in your lives. Right? But you can learn. There's wisdom in learning. Like for me, I saw the wisdom that could be brought here by teaching something that's foreign, like the Kundalini teachings. And there's people who are not familiar at all with the tree of life. There's wisdom in showing this philosophy, this religious teaching, because it could expand one's wisdom on how to go about engaging with one's life, and you grow and you heal. I'm all about learning. I'm all about wisdom. Without knowledge and wisdom, we are truly lost, because there's absolutely no way to have a proper understanding of where we are in our lives. Look, number 3, understanding, blocked deep comprehension. Symptoms of this imbalance: overthinking, obsessed over details, anxiety, feeling stuck in mental hoops. How do we balance? Meditation on divine trust, releasing control, embracing spontaneity. Also, I would say trust in oneself, and also awareness, where you can't see the forest through the trees. And inability, I guess, to make decisions because you're stuck in mental hoops. So do you see how, and then that grows into an understanding that's stabilized, that therefore that understanding is able to manifest in the kingdom, because you're in a better, stronger way, in a more wise way, because you can see the whole playing field and not just the details. Therefore, you can take it all into account and come up with a better solution. Does that make sense? The wisdom manifests in a better way. So do we see here how the importance? So mercy, block generosity and love. I'm going to speed up a little bit. Feeling emotionally closed, fear of giving, inability to forgive. These are all divine attributes, right? How do we do it? Practicing compassion, acts of kindness, opening the heart. I spoke a little bit about this 2-3 weeks ago, right? So you're really engaging head on with what's lacking. I'm emotionally closed. Well, you learn to start sharing. And if there's nobody here who is safe, then maybe you find a therapist that you trust and you learn about opening up, and that'll help you to process your thoughts and your past. And by speaking about something really helps to make it clear and heal. You have fear of giving or an ability to forgive. Well, you start giving. That's an act. And you use your mind and you just say, I'm going to give. And you overcome that fear of being generous, of your time, talent, intellect, and inability to forgive. Well, look at the people you have problems forgiving and go up to them and say, I forgive them. Now, there might be things that you really can't forgive. So you start on those things that you are within the realm of you being able to forgive honestly. Not saying, I forgive you, and you just aren't able to. Start on that road. Start small, and the ability becomes bigger and bigger through practice. You're creating a good habit using your mental intent, which changes the energy of your emotions, which in turn changes the flow of your energy. So we're going from the outside action inward. And we've also taught through these esoteric teachings how to go from inward to outward manifestations. So we're working from both sides. And that makes it really effective. So it will become much easier to forgive. It'll be much easier to feel and express emotions in a faster way, because we're eliminating the stuckness from both sides that have issues. Working from one or the other is hard. From the outside in is the most difficult and hardest way, because you're working and trying to break through the solidity of the thing that's already manifested. Energetically is very fast because the solidity has not manifested. You're dealing at a cellular level that's movement and more fluid, which is going to give rise to something. Like a tree that's fully grown, you want to change its shape, good luck. But if you have a sapling that's all flexible, well, bonsai is a perfect example of that. You could literally create it into the form you want, right? But you could work from both. Outside in, which is really a lot of the modalities of this society. Inside out, more of the esoteric secret teachings from ages of past. And they're very effective. And they're not really secret, just nobody tries to find them or cares to listen to them, or they have mental blocks. Oh, I don't believe in that, but they don't really listen and they don't really learn it. And they don't try it to see, oh, there might be a little truth in that. And it really unlocks a very, very profound means to fundamentally change your life in a very, very quick way, especially if you start stacking different modalities and work on it in many different ways. You're literally changing and undermining bad things on many different levels, and they all feed and interlock with each other. So as you start loosening and changing different things, it will automatically, even if you're not working on a particular aspect, change a different level of what keeps it locking in. And as opposed to having it, we all enforce each other and making everything worse, you start enforcing change, and it starts unlocking and loosening all different aspects, internal, intermediate, external. Yes? Okay. Strength and judgment, block, discipline, or excess harshness. Symptoms of imbalance. Too much self-criticism, lack of structure, feeling unworthiness, being over-judgmental. How do we balance? Now, these are some of, the aspects, right? It's just good examples, right? I'm sure if I put my mind to it, I could figure out more, but this is just giving an idea, right? There could be more. There may not be, some people may view this different qualities or not fully agree. It's, this gives an idea, okay? How do we balance? Practicing self-discipline without rigidity, learning to trust oneself. Right. So too much self-criticism, lack of structure, feeling of unworthiness, being overly judgmental towards oneself. So you're in your car. This is the stick shift in neutral. You could rev that engine all you want, and your car ain't going anywhere. It's very disabling. It's very crippling. And it could actually put the gear only in first or second or in reverse. I don't see how you could hit fifth, sixth, or fourth gear, or even possibly third, because it's very limiting, right? And you rebalance with discipline, improving self-esteem. Stop being overly critical. But on the reverse, there's a lot of people who aren't critical enough. Those raving egomaniacs really should self-criticize, really should realize that they think they're overly worthy when that's an excessive, and they're not judgmental enough. And there's a lack of introspection. Hence, an imbalance in the other extreme. You see? Right? Beauty, harmony, balance, block balance between emotions and intellect. Feeling emotionally, so as symptoms of an imbalance, feeling emotionally overwhelmed or emotionally numbed. Unable to integrate life experiences into wisdom. How do we balance? Centering practices, deep reflection, asking where is the truth in this moment? Well, where is the truth in this moment is trying to seek wisdom with a capital W. Or also trying to find understanding in this moment, right? So we're seeing how different Sefirots are linking with each other. Victory, blocked motivation and action, lack of willpower, feeling stuck, procrastination, burnout from excessive striving. Right? Burnout from excessive striving, that's an excess of a masculine tendency. Procrastination, that's excess in the feminine energy. Right? Lack of willpower, that's an access to the feminine energy, which all could result in feeling stuck. So you see how it's working here? So you rebalance by working on finding renewed inspiration, balancing action with rest, or rest with action. See? This gives you a way to start a starting line on how to look at what's going on in your life and start coming up with, how do I go about working with this? So it's no longer saying, this is how I am. I am this, this, and this, and this. Which, honestly, is how a lot of people view themselves. This is how I am. This is who I am. And if they don't see that it's possible to change, I find that very sad. I call these people locked in. I could speak to them however I want. I'm not going to get through because they've locked their sense of who they are. And they can't see how they could be anything different. And therefore, they're stuck in patterns that can't change. See? So we need to have an expansive thinking, which I hope I've provided here, of we can grow and change who we are and perfect. We are that child at age 7, that teenager, that 20-year-old, that 30-year-old. But we're also not. I am not that child at age 6. I am not that teenager. I don't have those issues anymore, thank God. I have not the 20-year-old. I'm not the 30-year-old, though. I wish I had more of the characteristics of when I was 30. But I'm a little older. So, you see? But yet I am these people. We are not locked in. We may think I am this, but I was also that, and that is also who I am. And I've changed, but also it's there. So to say I am this That ain't true, because who I am now is not what I was back then. Everything is fluid. But we get power by realizing our present moment, here, now, is not as stuck as we think it is. There is room to act now. So who we are in 10 years can be radically different than the arc of our lives. It's like a graph. It doesn't need, it could change, it could move. It doesn't have to be a straight line in a direction. We have flexibility. And by learning and understanding, we have ideas on how we can work with different aspects of ourselves to create what we wish to create. We get on our throne. We get in our driver's seat, and we begin to rule and direct our lives. And our lives no longer rules or directs us. The car no longer drives us while we are bound and gagged and blindfolded, locked in the trunk, which sadly is the state of a lot of people. And this is why this world feels so stuck and we can't do anything, because we've taken away our idea or the knowledge of how to be able to get into control to make changes. Yeah. I'm going to finish off. And this is why I've spent so much time on this. Now you're beginning to see why these teachings really, really are so helpful. And they're so, so central. The tree of life is just so central to Kabbalah and Judaism, and the Kundalini teachings are just so central to everything Eastern, because you could literally, it empowers you. Literally realizes I am not stuck. We're much more who we think we are, and we could really heal. Beauty, harmony, block balance between emotions and intellect. Oh, I think we did this. No? Well, even if I didn't, it doesn't hurt to repeat. Feeling emotionally overwhelmed or emotionally numb, unable to integrate life experience into wisdom. Centering practices. How do we balance? Centering practices, deep perfection, asking where is the truth in this moment. Okay. Victory, blocked motivation and action. Symptoms of imbalance, lack of willpower, feeling stuck, procrastination, burnout from excessive thinking. Striving. How to balance. Renewed inspiration, balancing action with rest. Splendor, humility, blocked humility or self-expression. Symptoms of imbalance, being too passive, low self-worth, or too arrogant, over-attachment to ego. So you see how they're kind of all mixing into each other? Yeah? How do we balance? Practicing gratitude, surrendering pride, recognizing one's value without seeking validation. So we're seeing how we can do internal actions, external actions, to rebalance things on the inside and our thinking. Foundation, blocked emotional or sexual energy. Symptoms of imbalance, unhealthy sexual expression, suppressed emotions, lack of deep relationships. So this is, one aspect of what could be out of balance, right? How do we balance? Clearing emotional trauma, integrating sexual and spiritual energy, healthy intimacy. Kingdom, blocked manifestation into reality. Symptoms of imbalance, feeling disconnected from the body, unable to take action, financial struggles, lack of grounding. So these are some aspects on, how do we balance? Physical movement, working with nature, taking concrete action towards goals. So it's a different way of understanding these imbalances than I've spoken about earlier. And I think it gives us a different way to engage with them. So I think that's it for today. Thank you for listening as long as you have. And if, people had to go halfway through, I totally understand. I hope they hit play at some point later on in the week and pick up where they left off. Cutting it in half and then giving the other half next week, my flow of thought and things I want to express, later on in the teaching, which I gave earlier, would have been a week later. And honestly, I wouldn't be able to connect different aspects in the same way because it's hard for me to retain everything and the flow from a previous week. So I tend to say it all at once, knowing that it's a lot, but then I feel that the quality of what I share is much better. But at the same time, I am mindful that it's almost been 3 hours. So thank you so much. I think in the future, I should be mindful to take a break somewhere. But thank you I hope this helps everyone. I don't think I've given as a detailed teaching ever. But I'm glad it's there, that it's been said. And I think it's really going to help us. And next week, we're going to shift it a little bit more into 8th gear. And I think we're going to finish these teachings off. I will see there may be one additional week where it's just for a brief time. But please tune in next week. It's going to be really interesting. And now that we have the proper base, now we can take off with these teachings. Now that we have an understanding and a proper structure, which is really essential. So this Wednesday, we will do some prayer, meditation, and pranayama. And I hope you all practicing. There's no way for this to work, what I've just taught over the last couple of weeks, without putting in the effort and to make the necessary changes. And let me tell you from personal experience, change happens, healing happens, happiness happens, rebalancing happens much faster than we think it will, especially if we engage at different levels of healing. It really can be much faster than we think. And we become different in a better way. And we are happy with the changes, believe me. They're always positive. Healing only can bring positivity. There may be change along the way. Things may have to be hard as we make changes we see that we need to do. It's not an easy path. Just make that very clear. The path is not always easy. It can be challenging because we have to unwind things. We have to go in different directions. A lot of people don't want to do that because it requires us going through some things. It requires a recommitment of our time. It can require having to make decisions which causes challenges and hardships and even pain because we have to let go of things. We may need to push ourselves in a certain direction that we're resistant towards, but we know we need to go there because where we are isn't healthy and it's challenging to make changes. But I think by working with the energy, by working with what's available to us in our society to assist, it's, I think, more workable today than it has been in the past. But at the same time, I think the blockages and what we carry is heavier today and more challenging by the nature of our society and culture than it may have been in the past as well. So we have the positives and we have the negatives of that, but change is much faster than we think. We are not the Pinto. We are resilient like the truck, but we could be as sleek and as fast, as responsive as the Ferrari. And we can go from the Pinto to the Ferrari much faster than we think we can. Don't rush. There's things to say about taking your time, but it's not endless, and you will see changes that give you confidence and the strength to move, to continue forward all along the way. And it'll reaffirm your decision and your effort to follow this very, very beautiful, beautiful path that not only helps us with our lives, so all of this would help anyone, religious or not, but for us people of faith and wishing to grow in greater connection and alignment with God, with Hashem, Yahweh, Emmanuel, Abba, whichever name you wish to call him. This is a pathway of going home. This is a pathway of not fearing when it's the end of your life, of where you're going to go. So you leave with a smile on your face. You leave with that you're really not going anywhere, because God's been with you. You've been living with him. You've been in relationship with him. And it's just deepening. And as you slip away, that connection just grows stronger. So you're always held. You're always supported. Honestly, you may not even realize that you've died as you're dying, because you don't find there's a closure, because you're already so far there. And that's a good person. That's a person who's lived in their kingdom, who's tried to manifest the most purified form of Emmanuel that they're capable of. Not everyone's able to go along the whole way, and there's very few examples of people who may have gone the entire way, and they might have been born the entire way and never had a lot of the issues we've had. But we can work on ourselves, and there's pride in the journey. There's honor in the effort. And God loves those who try and have the right desire. Say, may Yahweh bless us all. May Yahweh give us strength on our path in our lives. And I wish you a wonderful and blessed week. Thank you for joining me, and I really look forward to being with you all next week. Bye-bye.